Boss battles, the most exciting part of any game. You have honed your skills and bought the best equipment to test your mettle. Boss battles can define a player's experience of an entire video game for better or worse. Some are easy, but then there are those that are just straight up impossible. Whether they're just difficult or straight up OP, we'll be looking at some of the hardest boss battles in gaming. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to The Gamer for more exciting and engaging videos on the games you love. Now, on to the list. The Technodrome, TMNT on the NES. Before the internet age, players had to navigate dungeons and puzzles through trial and error, and the only way you could let people know was through word of mouth. Games in general were considered harder in those days, and a prime example of this was the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game for the NES. The game was notorious for its water section, where you only have 2 minutes to complete the level while navigating a maze of electric seaweed. However, that's a cakewalk compared to finding and beating the Technodrome. The fight is hard for 2 reasons. Not only is the fight itself difficult, but finding it can be a challenge in and of itself. The Technodrome is hidden underground, so you have to travel throughout New York and check in the sewers for it and traverse levels full of enemies only to turn up empty. You can lose a few turtles just finding the thing, and when you finally do, the real battle begins. The Technodrome has a field of electricity you have to fight around while it shoots projectiles and Foot Clan ninjas. There's not enough pizza in New York that would make this fight worth it, but alas, you must do it in order to beat the game. Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's Punchout. He was the youngest heavyweight champion of the world back in his day, but even now, Mike Tyson can put you on the floor. He surely put millions of gamers on the floor with his game Mike Tyson's Punchout, a sequel to the successful boxing franchise. The controls were simple, but the key to victory was timing. You needed to time your dodges, punches, and star power in order to beat the roster of opponents until you're face to face with Mike himself. Pre-face tattoo, of course. Anyone who's played this on the NES will tell you that Mike is not an easy guy to take down. You need near-perfect timing in order to survive Mike's onslaught of punches and uppercuts. While the game's controls are simple, and gameplay of the final fight may not seem very involved, trust us when we say that this is much harder than it looks. The player often needs to memorize Mike's attacks and look for those split-second tells in order to win. And even then, there's no guarantee you won't get knocked around a few times in the process. If it's any consolation, win or lose, you'll leave this game with both ears intact. Sephiroth, Kingdom Hearts 2. Make no mistake, Kingdom Hearts is an odd game. Final Fantasy and Disney collide in this beloved franchise with memorable characters, levels, and a story that's far too complicated to fit into a short video like this one. However, what most players remember from Kingdom Hearts 2 is the fight with Sephiroth, the antagonist from Final Fantasy VII. What's he doing in Kingdom Hearts? It's not really important, but what is important is Sephiroth does not mess around. You need to be at the highest level just to survive. Even then, Sephiroth dishes out high damage combos, has a slew of ranged attacks, and keeps up his offense with his long Masamune sword. The player's forced to make split-second decisions and hit every opportunity to block or it's instant death. It doesn't help that this guy can take a beating with a whopping 15 health bars. During the fight, Sephiroth gives you only a moment to recuperate, but if you heal or block at the wrong time, he'll punish you hard. Many Kingdom Hearts 2 players simply walk away from this fight because it's optional, but we know you can be a cut above the rest. Yellow Devil, Megaman. If there's one series that's known for a cast of memorable characters, it's Megaman. From the cool level designs to the memorable bosses, Megaman is a classic fan favorite for a lot of gamers. Of course, if you ask any Megaman fan, they'll give you a few contenders for hardest boss. Some might say Woodman or Elecman, maybe even Airman. But most would come to the consensus that the hardest boss is no man, but a devil. Yellow Devil. Yellow Devil is in the first Mega Man game and is regarded as one of the hardest bosses in the franchise. While later versions of him are a little easier, gamers will still groan at the sight of the original. What makes this boss so difficult, you might ask? Well, the big yellow blob fires parts of his own body across the stage and reforms on the other side. You have no choice but to dodge the hunks of devil, and even then, you only get about 2 shots in before he does it again. This constant defense and small windows for attack make Yellow Devil one long, grueling headache. Bison, Street Fighter. Fighting games are in a league all their own. There are few genres of games that totally change the landscape of gaming as well as permeate popular culture in general like Street Fighter. Go on, think of all the fighting game references in popular culture. You have Street Fighter to thank for that. The game hit hard when it was released, and it also introduced us to one of the toughest fighting game bosses to date, Bison. This crazy dictator was no pushover when he came onto the scene in Street Fighter II, and gamers were in for a rude awakening. He's hard-hitting and agile with his signature move, the Psycho Crusher. After laying in some punches, Bison will zip back and forth across the stage with his Psycho Crusher, hitting anyone in his path and doing major damage. To beat him, you have to utilize all of your gaming know-how in order to best him twice. Stay low and chip away at his health before he can grab a hold of you. His challenge is kind of softened over the years, but in Street Fighter II remains as one of the toughest boss characters to fight in a world of fighting games. He took your time, skill, and most importantly, your quarters. The Dancer of the Boreal Valley, Dark Souls 3. Honestly, we could just put the entire franchise here, but sadly that wouldn't be fair to all the other games. Dark Souls 3 was considered by many a return to form after the last game left hardcore Souls fans disappointed. Like any Dark Souls game, the third and final installment brought with it the oppressive difficulty, stunning scenery, and salt. Lots and lots of salt. Rage and salt levels were high when it came to the bosses of Dark Souls, and arguably the hardest boss of the game, the Dancer of the Boreal Valley. This lanky, armor-clad dancer is a cut above the rest. She stalks you around the battlefield, striking at you erratically and with long reach. But things really start to go south for you when she pulls out her second sword. She spins with both swords around the map, honing in on you for what seems like an eternity. In the second stage of the fight, things get crazier. It's harder to read her attacks, and she doesn't leave a lot of openings. Normally, you fight her after beating Yorm the Giant, but if you're really insane, you can fight her before you face off with the first boss of the game. Seriously, she's right across from Vort. It's harder than heck, but go for it. Ruby Weapon, Final Fantasy VII. Like Dark Souls, we could probably fill this list with Final Fantasy bosses. Final Fantasy is one of the longest-running gaming franchises to date, starting 30 years ago in 1987. The most recognizable in the series is Final Fantasy VII, which some have argued is what put Final Fantasy on the mainstream map. Even gamers who have not played the game can recognize Cloud's Buster Sword or Sephiroth's Long Masamune Sword. However, fans of the franchise will know it for having one of the hardest super bosses in the entire franchise, Ruby Weapon. With a staggering 800,000 hit points, immunities, and armor to boot, Ruby Weapon is a boss fight you can't even touch until you're max level. In fact, you need to get past Ultima and Emerald Weapon before Ruby even shows up, and those two can be beyond challenging on their own. Forgetting the previous fights for a moment, your party needs to be max level, otherwise you'll be wiped out in the first round. Even at max level, your party can still be wiped out in a few attacks. To beat this super boss, it takes planning, patience, and a whole lot of hero drinks and summons. Raam the Vacuous Spider, Bloodborne. A spiritual sequel to Dark Souls, Bloodborne was a unique Victorian horror game that played like Dark Souls for people who want to hit things more rather than wait for the opportunity to strike. You spend the game hunting down prey and collecting blood echoes, and along the way, you have a chance to take down some optional bosses. One of these stands out in that you have to make a leap of faith into a lake to fight him. You're transported to a crystal clear lake and see off in the distance spiders. Lots and lots of spiders. Fair warning. People with arachnophobia, please look away now because Raam the Vacuous Spider is considered by many to be the hardest boss in Bloodborne. He's big and ugly, but also surrounded by itty-bitty spiders who pack a mean bite. Getting by them can be a challenge, but after you are, you're free to hit the big galoot all you like. After a while, he'll disappear and reappear away from you, surrounded by a fresh batch of spiderlings. What makes Raam so difficult, other than his spider minions, is the fact that he also unleashes a devastating magic attack that can leave you vulnerable for his spiders to get you. Keep dodging and hit his flank, and the big bad spider goes down. General Raam, Gears of War. This is a different Raam, we swear. Gears of War was a landmark franchise that popularized cover-based third-person shooters. Throughout the game, you play as Marcus Phoenix to help rid the surface world of the Locust. The game is plagued with challenging boss fights, but the first game's final boss, General Raam, takes the cake. For starters, your AI Dom is about as useful as a screen door on a submarine, so it's basically just you and the General. Raam uses a minigun and is shielded by a swarm of krill which he then uses to attack with. You have to wait for him to stop firing at you to get a few potshots off. When he moves around, you should be on the move to get as far away as possible from him before resuming your spray and pray tactics. This is definitely easier said than done. Trust us, this boss can be infuriating. The general can easily shoot you to shreds with his minigun, and the krill can get over your cover if you stay in one place for too long. This fight requires some patience and timing in order to emerge victorious. It won't be easy, but then again, what is? Ornstein and Smough, Dark Souls. There isn't a more famous duo in the entire Dark Souls franchise. O and S is their shorthand among Dark Souls fans, but make no mistake, Dragon Slayer Ornstein and Executioner Smough are not to be taken lightly. One wields a large hammer with tremendous size to boot, and the other is quick and nimble with a lightning spear. Together they unleash powerful combos and complement each other's fighting styles. Keep an eye on both of them if you have any hopes of surviving. If one falls, the other gets stronger. The preferred method is to take out Ornstein first and let Smough get his lightning powers. The big guy may be strong, but he does not get faster like Ornstein. If you take down Smough first, Ornstein will get his size and hit much harder than before. This fight has been marked as a litmus test for any real Dark Souls fan. The two have been so prevalent that you can get their armor and weapons in the other Dark Souls games. If you've not yet played this stellar game, then this will serve as your warning. Prepare yourself for the dynamic duo and hope for the best. Good luck! Those were some of the hardest boss fights in gaming history. Do you have a boss fight you want to share? Let everyone know in the comments down below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more videos on the games you love from The Gamer. While you're here, why don't you go and check out our playlists and find your favorite video? We can assure you, it's there. Thanks for watching.